Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression.
Welcome back to an early morning edition to the Compression Podcast. 6 o'clock here in Kansas City, 7 o'clock where Jay is. Had to get it in early today because we are taking a little bit of time and doing a little reflection with the principals this week. Headed down to the Lake of the Ozarks and going to spend some time down there with the guys. And Taylor and the kids are actually coming down, staying at her dad's house. And on Sunday, which is Father's Day, happy Father's Day, or happy early Father's Day to all you fathers out there. She wanted to be there, so she made the commitment and found a way to be down at the lake so we can drive back together and spend Sunday together. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other things that happened this week, but very excited to say we made a big jump. Jerome, we're at $57.7 million on the goal. And feeling very good about that. I think that it's getting increasingly more difficult to find not only brokerage deals to refer out, but also find deals for ourselves. And we've had to increase that deal velocity, which takes us more time. So that the efforts that we were putting in last year, we have to do almost double that to get the same amount of output. But here's what's not accounted in that equation: the momentum, the systems, the track record, the reliability. All that is also helping. So I think if we hadn't taken the action that we did last year on both fronts, we'd be struggling like a lot of other commercial real estate brokers and agents out there. The residential world is hotter than hot. I hope some people are making hay here in Kansas City. I just saw that KC year over year is the highest market in relation to price increases on single family homes. It beat Austin, Phoenix, Dallas, Fort Worth, the Carolinas. And, that's meaning affordability for single family homes in Kansas City is getting priced out, which just helps our investment thesis even more on the multifamily side of things, which is great. But if you're looking to buy a house right now, oh my gosh, watch out, because you're going to be paying a pretty penny. And I say one of my top wins from 2020 was moving my family from our smaller Brookside house, which we love that area. We want to be back up there, to our beautiful home now. And I tell you what, man, I saw something, and that this house was stale on the market, and I went in and we grabbed it up, and we've been doing projects ever since, and absolutely love it. We just finished the back deck. Taylor's got all the flowers. We've got the trees planted. We've got the back deck done, and just taking a lot of ownership in the home, and it's really feeling like home, which is really cool. So, it was a great thing that we did in 2020 that is not really like a professional thing, but I look at my home as the domestic church, and I want my home to feel very comfortable for Taylor, for myself. Obviously, I got this amazing home office, but inspiring workplaces is something we've talked about in the past. And when I wake up at this house, I still kind of have to pitch myself every day. I'm like, holy cow, is this mine? Going back, 7 years in my 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom house in Westport to where we are now is a fun trajectory to think about. So
don't skip over the roach infested apartment. That's part of the story too.
Oh my gosh, my mom cried. My mom cried when she dropped me. She helped me move in after I got cut from the NFL. And she's like, this is really where you're living. And I said, this is what I can afford. had no front door on the apartment building. Dogs were running around in the first floor. I was on the second floor. We had bugs. I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I didn't spend much time there. I slept there and I left. But you know, you gotta take into account where you come from, you know. And you know, I'm very, very proud of what we've built, not only as a family, but what we're working on professionally. So let's jump on in, man. Let's jump on into the week. How's Jerome doing?
Amazing, man. Fresh off the 6.
Yeah.
Got 20. I got a quarter to do left. I got a quarter of a mile left, but I was like, man, let me get in here, get changed up real quick so we can do this. And then I just had my 8 o'clock canceled. So I'll go back out, get the rest, and roll on
I
into the
appreciate
week.
you being flexible, man. This is important to me and important to our listeners that we continue to get this done. So as you can see, 57.7, we made a big jump last week. You know, I think that Jerome and I were talking about this beforehand. You know, it was the biggest multifamily brokerage deal I've ever done. And, you know, I think that in my time involvement in that deal, my ROI on that deal was probably the highest on any project. And, you know, it really just kind of, I'm not going to speak numbers here because I don't want to lose people, but it really shows you that when you can build something, you build reliability, credibility, a track record, you know, your inputs are no longer tied to your outputs. And I built something underneath me on the referral side of our business that is incredible. And I jump in when I need to, but I pull back out. And, you know, it was very exciting to see kind of the people that I've, you know, put in place in that and their growth as well. And seeing that get over the finish line was really cool. I'm going to shout out to Alex Olson. I'm not sure if he listens, but yesterday we had a meeting scheduled. I know he wanted to talk about strategy, about podcasts, about all this stuff. And, you know, an hour later or 2 hours later, I had, you know, the biggest webinar of my life, you know, and I texted Jerome and said, I got a big pitch today. He said, it's just another pitch, just another pitch. And we'll talk about that pitch today. But, you know, ended up Alex needing an Uber because his car was getting worked on. He ended up staying here for 4 or 5 hours working in the downstairs office. And I just thought that was kind of cool. And he's, you know, his progression from corporate world to commercial real estate has been a very rewarding process for me as well, because it's changed his life and it's going to continue to change his life. And what I'm doing, what I get to do, what I'm blessed to do on a regular basis is bring people up to another level and kind of show them what's available to them. And that's what this podcast is all about. And it's happening not only with our employees, but with people that I've worked with in the commercial real estate industry. And that's a huge win for this week, is just realizing that, realizing the impact that I have, that I'm blessed to have. But at the same time, there's some responsibility that goes within that. And so building those relationships, man, has been a huge win. So I got some things I wanted to talk about this week. You heard that, you know, we're taking a little bit of a quarterly retreat. So what does that mean? Well, every 3 months, Parker, Corey, and myself, we get away from the business. We get off site. We spend a couple of days zooming out, taking a look at where we're at from our traction, you know, implementation system, our entrepreneurial operating system, and, you know, making sure we're staying on course. And it's so easy during the period of growth to just get focused on in the business. It's really important to get off site and talk about the business. And, you know, I think it'll be a little less structured this weekend because we're going to be playing a little golf today. We're going to be hanging out by the pool tomorrow. And my wife goes, well, are you guys actually going to get any business done? And I said, sweetheart, you know, these are the conversations. This is the time that actually drives our business, because we can actually take an objective view, kind of the Eagles perspective, and look back down at what we're doing. And then next week, we've got another 12-hour session to actually go implement what we talked about today. So, you know, people want to know always about the partnership, how we came to be, you know, how we're continuing to build that relationship. That's what we're doing on a regular basis. It takes time. It takes, you know, intentionality, and it takes reflection. And that's an easy part, I think, of when people are, especially solopreneurs, but maybe have a small team that they don't do and they miss. And I can tell you that it's so important to do that. And it's hard whenever you're trying to figure out how to drive revenue and to cut expenses and find more deals and marketing and branding and operations and selling deals and referring deals. I mean, I tell you what, man, there's 1,000 things going on all the time. But if you don't take that time to step back and look at this thing, we do it weekly, right? Which is, a big part of the compression podcast. But, that's a culture. That is a mentality that I'm going to be bringing. I do bring to FTW so often, because if you don't, then, you can get kind of on the wrong path and get short-sighted. And I'm going to talk about my short-sightedness a little bit this week on that. But that's a big win for me this week too, man, is taking the time and actually doing that. Jerome, how do you get an objective view on your business, man? Like, what do you do? I know you love to travel, but how do you think about that process? And do you implement something similar to that?
Yeah, so it's interesting that I thought about implementing traction earlier this year, and it was around the same time you guys started with it. And I did. I decided to spend more time on creating an actual dashboard on the activities that I think are most important. And I want to have a combination of leading and lagging indicators on that dashboard. And, a lot of times in business, we just look at revenue, right? Are you driving new revenue? And where's that revenue coming from? And what'd you do to get that revenue? And just kind of going through it. But then what I mixed in with that is, what are the goals through the 6 levels,
Yeah.
right? Self-image, relationship, work, health, prosperity, significance. What are my goals in each one of those, and having a specific target so that when I go to the journal in the morning, I can look down through my activities and make sure that there's not anything on there that's not one of those priorities, right?
Yeah.
And so you envision a life that you want, and then you kind of back into it and go from, goals to milestones to the actual day-to-day tactics and strategy, and just making sure they're aligned and then tracking them, right? And so that's the great thing about traction, is the EOS and turning over the rocks and all of that great stuff. And the thing that I'm getting to in this year is going to be back to quarterly travel, right? And not like just going somewhere else and doing the same thing, right? But like leaving the computer behind,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's me, books, and some journal, right? And just kind of working through it. And the best thinking for me is actually happen on airplanes more often than not, right? Just because nobody can get you unless you connect to the Wi-Fi, and I don't.
Right.
And so now, it's you and maybe the person sitting next to you. If you didn't bring anybody with you, can be talking about whatever. And I just literally ask myself, and it sounds morbid, man, but we do practice a little bit of stoicism, right? And so it's like, okay, so what would I regret if the plane dropped out the sky right now?
Yep.
And that gives you an immense amount of clarity, right? And it also lets you know what you haven't done that you need to do. And what do I mean by that? Like when I realized that not having an assistant would mean that if I stopped, then the entire business stopped. That doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Right. And then, okay, so if I fire myself from this, and this, then I have time to do these other activities. And then when people start thinking, hey, everybody that is an employee, they think about themselves on a salary basis that usually translates to 40 hours a week, right?
Right.
And so they've got this hourly rate. But when you're creating deals, when you're creating value for a large amount of people, you decouple that dollar amount from an hour. And, you can work, a few hours and make tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the deal. And most people just never actually get it.
Right.
They feel like they need to be working 40 hours a week for however long in order to get to the result. And that's really far from the truth, especially if you set up a system. Now, for the people who are working within that system, hopefully you can figure out how to make them generate more revenue than what they cost you on a hourly basis. And if you do that well, you can end up making some really positive leverage. And that was the one thing that I was thinking about when you were going through the impact from the work that you did last year. The big change this year to last year is leverage.
Right.
right? I mean, you've got additional people who are contributing to the mission, right? It's not you have to push the rock up the hill by yourself. And I mean, Corey Parker, they're around too, but like it's not just you, it's you and the band of merry men and women,
That's right. I always, we've talked about this. It's brilliance is what you get paid for, and that's where the manufacturing opportunity out of thin air comes from. Seeing something that other people don't, connecting ideas, people, deals with other things that people aren't seeing on the surface level. Synthesizing is what Charlie Munger calls that, and synthesizing is not easy to do. If you don't have the experience, and that's why people are always asking me, how do I get started? What do I do? How do I get to where you are? I'm like, dude, this is 7 years in the making,
work
8 years in the making. Get started, but you have to have realistic expectations that until you get to a certain point in your career, all of the things that I was doing 6, 7, 5 years ago are what I'm seeing the fruits of now. And I know what the work I'm putting in now is going to do 5 years from now. I don't know, but I do know that it's going to have lasting impact because the brilliance that we're creating on a regular basis, and we're doing it much more at scale now with leverage. And that's the exciting part for me, knowing that the system is on, even though I haven't won the game yet, knowing that system that's playing from the whistle. It's playing from the whistle to the snap, not the snap to the whistle. And that's the game you got to be playing. You got to be reflecting. You got to be playing that game. And you got to be willing to say, it's going to take some time. You have to put the time in, but I'm willing to do that to create something greater in the future than what I can feel right now. And that's stoicism. That's delaying gratification, and that's focused on growth for the long haul. But that's not what people want to hear. That's not what people want to hear. They see the deals. They see what we did yesterday, which I'll talk about right now. And they're like, man, is it really that easy? I'm like, easy is not, there is no easy button on this desk. There is no easy button. I cannot push the easy button. What I've done is I see opportunity and I position ourselves when that opportunity comes to pounce and to go all in. And we wrote about this previously. Diversification is for idiots. That's from Mark Cuban. Okay. And I'm not trying to diversify myself outside of all these different things. And, I don't muddy my mind with cryptocurrency, with all these different business opportunities. I see what we're doing. I'm going to build that. I'm going to diversify inside of that niche, but I don't need to go diversify anywhere else. I'm not trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I'm trying to be a master of what we're doing right now, and then put people in place that can lever my time to go master something else. And that's what people miss, man, because you have to be willing to master it. And until you can master it and then actually understand who to put in place and afford the right person, because you need somebody that's maybe a level underneath you or 2 levels underneath you that wants to get to where you are. They're not going to stay with you, your whole life. Maybe they will if you continue to implement the right way. But I'm trying to bring people in my life that, are going to make me better. And I know that they have a trajectory for growth that allows me to step away from that. It's still working. It's a profit center. It's moving, it's shaking, but I get to go work on the next thing once I've mastered that piece. And you know what, man, I could say that this will be our second really full year with FGW. I've got at least 3 to 4 more years until I master this thing, master deal flow and master the money, but now my time is spent. Okay, what do I do from a diversification standpoint whenever we're looking to dispose of these assets? So now it's, hey, I'm not just buying assets. I got to position them to sell. I got to find something else to trade into. We need to look at new models, new capital partners, new relationships, fund structures, all of these different things. I haven't mastered any of that. What I have, done some mastery along is building a network and building a process and putting people in place to help me do that. And so, we're 2 years into this thing. I got 3 to 5 more before I feel like I'm at any level to master it. I mean, you got guys on your podcast like, oh, I can't remember his name. Brian, I think is his name. It's the gentleman that you've had on your show multiple times. Been doing this for 20 years. He wrote a book that people absolutely love. But that guy's been at this thing for 15 or 20 years.
Ryan Burke.
Ryan Burke. I mean, come on, man. That guy's playing at a high level, but guess what?
He's playing a different game.
He's playing a different game. But guess what? He got started. I remember he put a post up, of his, first deal or something way back when. He got started just like this. And he's continued to elevate, man. And that's what it takes. That's the time. And that's why I said on our speaking engagement earlier this week, man, this commercial real estate syndication business seems really frothy right now. There's almost a herd mentality that is flocking towards putting deals together and thinking that you can do this on a regular basis. Well, I'll tell you right now, and there's different levels of being in the business, but I was with Brian Adams earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. I can't remember. Maybe it was last week. The time is just kind of compressing into each other. But he said, man, I had a mentor that I really respect. He said, just do it long enough. Be willing to do it long enough. He said he started in Nashville 11 years ago, something like that. And all the guys that he started with, man, they're gone. They're nowhere to be found. They're out.
One-hit wonders, baby. They are not running a marathon. It's a sprint for most people, man. And consistency is the difference, right? If you can endure longer than everybody else, and that was my secret, especially in college, man. I wasn't the most talented, right?
Yeah.
But all of the guys who came in with me academically ineligible, get in trouble, drugs, and eventually I still remember Varice and me going, and the dude, he was like 6'3", ran like a 4.4, just an amazing athlete. And I remember walking into the calf behind him one day. I was like, man, I'm going to be starting and you're going to be watching. And, there was nothing that I could do better than this guy. 2 years later, I was starting. He was watching. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter. Some of it's just endurance, man. You got to be hardy.
Yeah, sustainability. So I want to talk about that. This week, a win and a loss is embracing the grind. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but let me hit the other ones. I was really focused on high value tasks this week, letting myself say, hey, I know there's other things I need to be doing. They need to get done, but making the main thing, which was, our new project and the launch of the capital raise for that was my main project this week. So I was really focused on high value tasks, efficiency and effectiveness, right? So being effective, but also, blowing in some efficiency there. The part that I want to say that I'm very proud of, and I'm trying to let myself feel proud of, some smaller raises. So just for you listeners that aren't really, involved in commercial real estate, the way that we do these projects is we market a webinar to our investor list. The investor list comes and listens to the presentation, and then it's open for reservations to reserve your spot in the project. Well, the deal that we are raising for right now is, 3 to 4 times the size of our regular raises. Our typical raise is about $1 million. This is about 3. And, so in the past, the last 3-4 webinars before I've been done, those things have been filled up. And that's a good feeling. Actually, we go back a couple episodes. It caused me a lot of interesting feelings, but I tried to set the stage for myself to say, hey, this is 3 times the size of any deal that you've done in-house on a raise. So be careful with your expectations on what comes through the door right after the webinar. And, I'm proud to say that we got, double what we ever have. We got $2 million in 4 hours reserved for a deal. But I still had this lingering feeling in my heart that, oh man, I still got 700, about 800,000 to go get. Where's that going to come from? But I had to take, and this morning I had a little bit of reflection. And I said, dude, that's a win. That is a win.
Huge win.
Huge win. But I'm falling into that same old trap, but I caught it. At least I caught it this week. That said, man, you got to let yourself feel that as a win. You're going to get the project done. You've got, 30 days left to do the rest of it. You got $2 million in 4 hours for a great project. That is a big, big win. So, that's that's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I still have this like little bug in my ear, this little devil on my shoulder saying, "You're not good enough. You didn't get it done in 4 hours." You know what? But I look at all the other people in the space, and I'm not comparing myself to them. I get 15 emails for them to get one deal done, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to send 2 to 3 emails. The invite, the recording, and then a reminder to show everybody where we're at. Maybe there'll be a 4th one in there, and it'll be done. I don't want to blast my list, my investors, continuing to show them every 5% that we've raised, letting them know, hey, we've raised it. And those guys are doing it at scale. Like Dan Hanford's raising $31 million. So it's a different scale. That's not what we're doing here. But at the end of the day, the point being, the win was, yeah, we got that capital in reserve. That's great. But also, I at least felt what I felt previously, even though I was successful previously, unsuccessful on the getting it done in 4 hours per piece, but doubled what I had done in the past ever in 4 hours. And so I caught it. I'm dealing with it. It's still there, still a little devil on my shoulder. I'm trying to flick off, but that was a huge win. The launch that we had for our legacy apartments was a really big win. So
did you feel that way when you put another 5 pounds on the bar? Did you feel inadequate or not good enough when you put extra 5 pounds on the bar?
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay.
All I felt in the moment was amazing.
Yeah. It's the same thing, man. I mean, now you might be raising your bench press in this case from, 245 to 315 or something, right? But, it's interesting to put things in perspective. Logan, I had a call earlier this week. The guy said, I've never raised money before. I'm looking at a development deal with somebody who's never actually done a development deal before. And he's asked me to do the whole raise. This guy's got less than 500 followers on LinkedIn. I don't think he actually has an email list at all. Yeah. And the raise is $10 million.
Woo.
And I looked at him and I said, this is no disrespect to you, but you're not in position to be successful.
Yeah.
You're just not, right? The infrastructure you have to build in order to get that in front of enough people is significant.
Yeah.
And so,
success at all. I agree.
We're talking about a man who's done several years of this business and is on track to do $100 million in a year. And, $3 million is a lift.
Yeah, absolutely is.
And so let's triple that and then add a little bit for extra. And so, back to the point, and I just really want to hammer home the point, 7 years in the making. And so all the folks out there that think, hey, I'm just going to go to the top, I'm going to syndicate these huge deals, I'm going to get the big acquisition fee. I don't have an example of anybody who's doing that.
Right.
I think they buy something and they get some tuna in the boat and then they go back out and you send people checks. They want to send you a bigger check back because they know they get checks off the check they send you.
Right.
That's the name of the game. So anyway, man, I think it's phenomenal. I know you'll get the rest of the raise done. Yeah. We had some adversity early in the year where, you kind of raise your eyebrow and question whether or not you could get that done. Yeah. That was a fraction of this. You got that done in less than a week.
Yep.
We'll get the balance. I mean, if that many people have come into the game already, it makes sense. And so we just got to get some more people, get it in front of more people. And the one thing that I picked up from Multifamily Investor Nation Summit last week, and it's something I've heard before, but never had opportunity to put it in practice, is just, your email open rate is something less than 50% more often than not. So that potentially means the 50% of the people that you're sending it to have no idea that this is actually happening.
Exactly right.
And so how do you make sure that get open? And what Dan does is he sends a printed document of the pitch deck to him. And then your answer is what I think is probably a little bit more effective or faster, is call or text, because the game is getting in people's pockets, right? And
That's
so
right.
between those two things, I'm sure you could shake the tree and get where
Yeah.
you need to get.
What I checked out this morning was, okay, how many people came to the webinar? Great. How many people signed up? Great. I even did a pre-launch that, was expressing of interest. Who's on that list that didn't get to the webinar? Whose email got buried and they didn't see it? And what shook out was 55 people that saw the deal at one point, expressed interest, but did not make it to the webinar. So I got 55 people to call to get the rest of the deal done. That gave me a lot of confidence, man, because if those 55 who I've already talked to in the past, have a pre-existing relationship with, they expressed interest, 2 weeks ago, but then they maybe just missed the webinar video. I've got 55 people to reach out to and kind of see where they're at with the deal. So you're absolutely right. Email. Now, what I like to do is keep a barometer on who will fund deals through email, because that's the scalable piece, right? And that's what I'm focused on. But there will be some point where you have to call, you have to text, maybe it's mail. I love that Dan sends out his monthly newsletter and has something on there for the kids and all that stuff. He's doing things differently. Again, Dan is raising $31 million for a deal though. So we're talking about a different stratosphere here, guys. And that's from retail investors. I don't think Dan really works with family offices or, those big funds. So, that's a different level of scale, and that's great. I don't know if I'll ever need to even be at that, nor do I want to have that side of the business kind of, that be my main thing. But at the end of the day, I just had to say, look, I felt myself doing this yesterday. It was, hey, you have only done one part of a 5 to 6 step process. Give yourself some grace. You'll continue to go through the process. More people will shake in. And guess what? I didn't check my email last night after 6, and there was 3 other people that had reserved for the project. So it's just trust in the process. Trust in the process. But I can trust the process now because I've been through it. This is our 22nd or 23rd raise. And so, frankly, I could trust that process, knowing that if I just follow it and don't kill myself through it, this is the sustainability piece that we're talking about. So that was a big win, man. Let's move on to some losses. And Taylor just walked down with Ezra, so I know she can hear me because she's just on the other side of this wall. But when I get focused, when I get locked in, dialed in, the cleaner mentality comes out, and I don't let the compressor mentality come in. And it's something I'm trying to work on. So what does a cleaner do? Well, they rifle in, they cut out all the noise, and they focus on that. Well, I had this big immovable object in my head until 3 o'clock yesterday, which was when the webinar was I can't think about, I can't do anything until that is done. And that rolls over to my personal life, which is just not okay. That is a cleaner mentality. I got to elevate that to the compressor mentality. So, we looked at each other earlier this week, and we were both on the same page. She says, man, and she's been battling some I don't know. Gee, what did you have, babe? Was it a sinus infection? Some sort of cold or something like that. And so she's not been feeling the best. And I've been really focused on work. I've had speaking engagements in the evening. But we kind of looked at each other and said, man, this week we feel like roommates a little bit, and not husband and wife. We kind of feel like roommates. And so when that starts coming up, that's when I know, even though we did go on a date night, even though we did the normal routines there, when that routine really starts feeling like a routine, you have to do something different to be able to create that, that spice. And so at the end of the day, that's a big loss, is, us both feeling like we're roommates and not husband and wife this week. Now, we had kind of a chirping contest a little bit last night, and I think made some strides to kind of get past that. But at the end of the day, I want to avoid that at all costs, especially while I'm doing these projects more regularly, because if that's the case, then I can't pour myself and lock in like that, and then also be, a faithful husband and a hero husband and father. Then what am I doing it for? So being aware of that's what I wrote down, and trying to make sure that, I'm setting myself up for success when I know these projects are coming, having a conversation. Hey, here's what's on my heart. Here's what I'm working on. I'm really, really, focused on this, but I need you to check me whenever I feel like a robot to you, because I don't want to be robotic. I want to be your husband and not your roommate. So ongoing process there, but that was definitely a loss. And I've recognized that in the past where, when I get one of these big projects in, I kind of just, turn everything else off and focus on that, which is, it got me successful to a point, but it's not sustainable. And that's what we talk about here a lot, is the sustainability.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
I'm just thinking about so this is why I struggle with the whole concept of balance that everybody is seeking. I think we swing in and out of balance depending on the demands and commands of life.
Yeah.
And so, recognizing that you're out of balance, but knowing that it's for this finite time. I've got anxiety, I've got stress. I need to exert force against this. There's only but so much resource available to apply against it. Now, you could scale that, right? Instead of the webinar being your thing, maybe it's you and a team of people, right? But you have but so much capacity that you can apply against all of the things that require resources from you. Mm-hmm. And, the question really becomes, well, how do you get out of that? Is the anxiety too much? Is the pressure more than what you should be taking on? And if so, then how do we mitigate it? Or is it okay for 2 or 3 days for you to be locked in on this thing, and then you're back out, and then you're back in, and just kind of like in and out, kind of parachuting? Or I don't know if I really like parachuting, because that really signifies like superhero in and out, but just these fits of work and then back out to relaxation. I don't know if a struggle is the right word, but I do know one thing: if you're in balance, you make no progress. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to come out of balance and then come back to equilibrium, and you're moving between these things. And sometimes there's going to be an increased demand, and I'm not sure, especially in the building phase, how you get rid of that.
Yeah, I think that what stood out to me there, Jerome, is I gotta get out quicker, right? And realize that I'm going in, but then go in for a shortened period of time, right? So like this week, it was from Monday to Thursday. So maybe next time we have a webinar, I do it on Tuesday. So really, I'm going in Monday and Tuesday. I also was not as prepared as I would have liked to be. We finished the offering memorandum 3 hours before the webinar. That needs to be fixed. That is a tangible that can be fixed. And until that's fixed, until I feel good about where the deck is, I can't let myself go. So it was later in the week. So I had three days to think about this, to market it, to get everything that needed to be done. But I also was just finishing everything up, in regards to design and all of that, the day of. And so there's tangible things I can take away to say, hey, realize that maybe you need to schedule them earlier in the week. Realize that you need to get your deck done 7 days, no later than 7 days beforehand. Put time on your calendar to go through it, know your talking points, let yourself be okay with that, zoom back out, and then zoom back in for an hour or two, then you're back out again. So I think that's a huge takeaway, man, is being able to swing in, swing out, but also plan in a better fashion than I did this time.
Yeah, and you talked about the schedule a little bit too, right? And so, you hadn't been doing much in the evenings from a live streaming perspective, or just doing webinars. So, that was additional. Right. You're traveling this weekend, you're going to be away for a couple of days. That adds on and piles on. And so, she's looking for her time and her space. Yep. And it all seems to be getting sucked out into other places. So maybe there's a way to be a little more structured on the raids. But I mean, the webinar comes when the webinar needs to come, right? Being able to move it one week either way may not actually be feasible in the due diligence time frame. So we've got to be flexible there, but in the same breath. And this is something I've seen people do. I don't know if it actually is the right solution for FTW, but some people are recording their webinars instead of holding it live, right? And it allows them to get some additional production value into it. It allows them to refine it and edit it a little bit. Yeah. And maybe they were finding that enough people weren't showing up based on how many people were being invited, and they were getting, similar engagement when they were letting people consume at their leisure. I don't know. There is an opportunity for the kind of the run to the back of the room. This person's in and then another person's in, and you get that when people are there at the same time. And some people like the ability to ask questions live. And so, those are potentially, that might be another strategy where now it's a little more controlled, right? There isn't the anxiety of I'm going live right now. This thing's got to be perfect. You may just be able to get some additional there. You've been building the media company, right? So, there may be opportunity for a more polished product to come out on the backside of that.
It's a good point. I've typically, used the opportunity for the webinar to drive interest, right? So you market it beforehand and see who's actually going to sign up. But I think there are certain projects and there's certain ways to do this, especially if I have a longer lead time for the raise, have a pre-recorded webinar. And then maybe we jump on and we say, hey guys, here's the pre-recorded webinar, come and bring in questions, on a shorter live stream that we do. So I think there's ways that we can definitely take that approach. So other losses, Taylor made a big effort to make sure that she was around during Father's Day. And I looked at that the wrong way. I said, well, this is a business thing that I'm going down there. It happens to fall on Father's Day. But I didn't give her any credit. And I realized that last night when she had to bring it up through my thick school, that I'm doing this for you. And you're making me feel like I'm doing you a favor. And I'm actually doing it for you because I want you to be able to be around your children and me on Father's Day. I'm putting myself out, going out on the limb, driving 2.5 hours with our children in a car, staying with my dad at a place we've never stayed at really before with the kids. They're going to be out of their sleep routines, all of those things. And I didn't even say thank you. And that's a loss. And again, she's literally on the other side of the wall. So I can tell her thank you, here on the podcast. So I'll tell her thank you again. But, I was so consumed with everything else going on that I didn't. And not only that, she packed for the kids. She packed for me. She planned. She said, hey, do you want me to cook banana bread? So she did. She woke up this morning. She's going to make us breakfast burritos. All of that stuff, she is showing me her love through those things. And I'm just not recognizing that fast enough or in the moment. And I obviously see it now, and that's okay. But it was a loss in the moment to see all of that the way that she was doing. So,
yeah. And so the only thing I can offer there, very mature, right? Very mature, very thoughtful, reflective. And while she would have appreciated on the front end, I'm sure she appreciated it on the back end too, just because, there's some people who didn't get there. And I think the other piece of it is just the importance of it for her, right? There's a lot of women who wouldn't care, right? And so that's important. The thing that I think a lot of us miss is like we love on people in the way we would want to be loved on, and not so much in their language, right? And so making sure that the things that you speak in the same love language, right? Like it's always deflating when somebody does something for someone else and they don't appreciate it or receive it the way that you would hope they would. Like you feel like they don't appreciate it, but you may not be talking to them in their language, right? And so there's kind of a miscommunication that can happen. And so, if you guys haven't looked at love languages lately, just make sure she's really clear on what yours is and you're getting that from her, so that, because when somebody does something to or for you in your love language, you recognize that immediately, right? It's not having to peel back layers and thinking about the intention and all the other things that go with it.
Well, those were great. I'm hoping that I take my own feedback and catch it in the moment next time. But that's what we're doing here. That I'm realizing it, and I'm going to make changes. One thing she's always said, through our whole marriage, is you're one of the most coachable people I've ever known. And but to be coachable, you have to be humble enough to accept that feedback, that constructive criticism. And in the moment, it doesn't always feel good. especially when you got other things on your mind. But at the end of the day, what are the priorities? Faith, family, fitness, and then future. So it's a daily struggle. It's a daily challenge for me to always make sure those priorities are staying in the right lane. But weekly we get to check in and kind of see where we're at. So the last thing I'll say before we close up for this week, because I got to get ready to pack up the truck and get down to the lake here pretty soon. If you go into a week, if you go into a project, if you go into a meeting, labeling it as it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough.
Be hard.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And Jerome checked me really early this week, which was incredible. And I texted, I said, I got a big pitch this week. He said, it's just another pitch. And man, that weight just went right off the shoulder. I said, I'm prepared. I've done the work that comes up to this. I know what's on the back end of it. And I've done this before. It's going to be tough. But I'm going into this week with the speaking engagements, with the short week, with all those things, I started labeling this thing as it's going to be a hard week. I'm going to have to grind this thing out. This is going to be tough. It's going to be a challenge. Well, guess what? If you're forcing enough pressure that you're trying to become a diamond, you got the fire, you got the pressure all coming in, and you're doing that on a continual basis. Pressure is a privilege. You have to label it different. And you have to remember that that's what you're doing so you can continue to grow forward. And you just have to be careful with your language. We talk about the triad a lot: physiology, focus, and language. Well, the triad, the language part got the best of me a little bit this week at the beginning. I knew it was going to be a tough week. And then what happens? Well, then the second order effect starts happening. The heart starts going, I'm not sleeping as well. I'm shorter with Taylor. I'm less patient with the kids. So you just have to be careful with that focus and that language and how you're labeling things that are going on in your life. That's my number one learning. Obviously, we've talked about quite a few already, but man, that's a big piece. So when I have a next project, which will be next week, I got 2 more projects to do. And so I'm going to take these learnings from, setting the expectations with myself. And maybe it's even to the point of like having a 15-minute meeting with myself on my calendar and say, okay, let's plan this thing out. How did you feel last time? What do you want to avoid feeling this time? And how do you actually go do that? How do you make sure it doesn't affect your personal life? How do you zoom in and then zoom back out effectively? Set it up that way and don't put yourself in a position where, it's going to be the same results as last time. So, and again, guys, the result is good that I've got so far, but I'm trying to be the best. And that's what we're talking about here. Anybody else that's listening to this and says, this guy's, complaining about raising $2 million in 4 hours, like, yes, but I want to do it in the best way that I possibly can. And sustainability from a personal standpoint is a direct derivative from what you do in your professional life and vice versa. They're always talking back and forth. And so, one thing we've talked a lot about on the Compression podcast is the way that you see the world is the way that you see the world, and it's not really how it is. It's how you are seeing it. So change that up. And you have to be able to be willing to reframe things and talk about things differently and have meetings with yourself to do that. And that's the reflection part as well. I was up early every day this week, 3:30, 4, rolling. And, I know when I'm doing that, that's like my last resort. I don't like to tap into that. And I saw some of the energy levels kind of go down. The body battery wasn't as high as I needed it to be. But at the end of the day, that's my default is aggressive, just like Jocko says. My default is to get hunkered in and be more aggressive and push through. That is not sustainable for the next 10 years. I know that. But if you would have talked to me 12 months ago and how I approached all of this thing, my hair would be falling out. It'd be gray. It wouldn't be this beautiful brown hair that you see right here. It'd be gray. Because the stress that I put on myself and the business that puts on me, if I allow it to frame itself as a negative, boy, oh boy, you don't have the stomach for this business, man. You just do not have the stomach for this business. So that's the big learning. Anything you want to add before we jump to our quote from one of my favorite rappers of all time?
Oh, this is going to be good. Just talking about something isn't complaining, ladies and gentlemen, right?
Right.
Going through a reflection, realizing that you didn't get the complete outcome that you wanted and you still have work to do, and knowing that you've done more than it's totally separate and independent from knowing that you've done more than you've ever done.
Yep.
Right. And that when you take that extreme ownership, you own the outcome, not the other stuff, because anybody can do stuff, right? Activity, busy.
Right.
We're looking for production,
Yes.
right? We're looking for achievement. We're looking for accomplishment. And so, anybody who would even begin to label this as complaining, it's certainly not complaining. It's a postmortem. It's the 15-minute meeting with yourself. How do I make sure that this doesn't happen again? What are the other alternatives? Am I seeing the options? That's the game, right? Because you're going to do it again. I mean, you just said 22 or 23 raises, right? Most people don't get that far ever, right? I mean, some people think they're supposed to raise $10 million on their first raise, let alone doing 3 on their 23rd, right? So it's an iterative process. We're all going to grow. Everybody who's played the game for a long time and is doing it in a major way has went through these steps.
That's right.
They might not talk to you about it if they have an education or mentorship program to sell you, because that's not sexy.
Right.
But we're giving you the real deal here, ladies and gentlemen. So Logan, amazing week, man. Excited for you guys. My only connection to the Ozarks is the TV show on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
And Marty's pretty smart. So you guys might be able to shake out the last million in the Ozarks if you hang out with Marty and be safe this weekend.
That I could jump on and talk to some people about real estate. There's a bar down there called Marty Bird's now, which is pretty funny.
But no, man, this is outstanding. I'm really proud of you and excited about, the reflection, the introspection, and, the growth. And, I think at the end of the day, the thing that you're going to appreciate most a year from now, looking back at it, is I started putting things in place so that the weight of the world wasn't on my shoulder. Because, I mean, that's the way that you end up in a heart attack. Like, it's the way that your family starts to hate you because you're always grumpy and, dissatisfied with life, and you don't actually get excited or appreciate what they're offering. So, keep going down the path, man. You're absolutely doing all the things that should be done.
Well, this gentleman that I'm going to share the quote with everybody today it has had a profound impact on me. And when you hear who it is, you might think that's a little funny, but he shaped my identity as a young 16, 17-year-old, and how I should conduct myself in certain aspects, and really gave me a lot of confidence. And that's 50 Cent. It's 50 Cent. 50 Cent has had a rise. He's had a fall. He's working back on another rise. But this guy, if you learn about his story, it's pretty incredible. And he says, when thinking about taking risks, people who raise their hands deserve to be ahead of people who don't. And all my life, I have just simply been raising my hand, asking questions, thinking that I can do it. And 50 Cent kind of gave me a lot of confidence early on. I forget what album it was, but
Get Rich or Die Trying.
Get Rich or Die Trying. There it was. I mean, that guy was going after it. That was his own version of compression. Now, a much more profitable version of compression.
I don't know, Logan. This is still early, man. We're only 6 months in. It's still early.
He did lose everything. So at the end of the day, though, there's a book written by a really introspective writer, Robert Greene, and he wrote.
That's crazy.
I think what was it called? The 50th
50 laws.
Yeah. It was the 50th law. He talks about 50's life. And I read that book and I was like, man, oh man, if that guy can do it, anybody can do it. So go out there, raise your hands. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Compression Podcast. We are coming on strong, 57.7 million. Stay tuned for next week. We had some more closings. We have some more closings happening. I'll give you an update on how the lake goes and getting out of the business a little bit and being able to look at it like a hawk. Jerome, thanks for doing this early. And I know you got some miles, or at least a quarter of a mile to go finish. I'm gonna let you go do it, man. Appreciate you.
All right, brother. Safe travels.
Hey, compressors. If something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.